We give you our best 3 bets for Week 6 in college football, and it all starts right now. What is up, Grandstand Bettors family? It's Matt from GrandstandBettors.com, and we're back with our weekly college football plays for Week 6. We went 3-0 last week. It was great. We're going to get to those plays in just a moment, but make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our free picks, predictions, and contests all throughout the season. And while you're at it, show us some love. Smash that like button for going 3-0 in college football last week, and let's run it back here in Week 6. So, without further ado, let's dive in to this week's matchups, and let's start things off with number 8 Tennessee against number 25 LSU in the noon Eastern time slot. Tennessee favored by 3 points, and the over-under is set at 64.5 at the moment. Tennessee Volunteers, they're off to a great start to the season, 4-0. They still have to play the likes of Alabama, Georgia, Kentucky, and in addition to this week's matchup against LSU, but they certainly have the players on their team to compete with those other top teams in the SEC. They have a fast-paced offense, which is averaging 48.5 points per game so far, and quarterback Hendon Hooker has looked very good this season. He's thrown for over 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 0 INTs. He also has that ability to extend plays with his legs as he's rushed for 175 yards and 3 touchdowns of his own, along with Jalen Wright and Jabari Small, who each have 4 rushing touchdowns on the season. They've accounted for 15 of the team's 26 touchdowns, and their run game is certainly a point of emphasis once the team enters the red zone. Now, their passing attack, however, just as dangerous. They have 4 different receivers who have all over 180 receiving yards and a touchdown or more on the season, and all of them are averaging 14 yards per catch. This offense is going to carry this team this season, but they also, on the other side of the football, have a very stout defense. The strength of their defense is certainly their front 7, which has only given up 97 rushing yards per game, but as a unit, they have only allowed 76 total points this season. As long as they continue to put up those kinds of numbers, they should be able to give any SEC team a run for their money. Now, the LSU Tigers, let's talk about them. Under new head coach Brian Kelly this season, they had that disappointing loss in Week 0 to Florida State, but they won the next 4 games by an average margin of 26 points. One of the biggest reasons for this is certainly their secondary. They've only given up 184 passing yards per game through those 5 games, and they rank 26th in college football with that stat. This run defense, though, another story. They're giving up over 100 yards per game. But together, they only are giving up about 14 points per game, and they are on lockdown when teams get in the red zone and they're backed up. 14 points per game, that's pretty good there, considering who they've played on the season thus far. On the other side of the football, though, they're averaging 443 yards per game on offense. They're pretty evenly split between their passing attack and their rushing attack. Quarterback Jaden Daniels actually leads their team in rushing with 321 yards, in addition to 915 passing yards on the season. Like Hendon Hooker, he's also not thrown an interception yet this season, but he has been sacked 15 times already. As long as he can keep getting the ball out of his hands quickly to guys like Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, this offense should continue to excel and put pressure on their opponents to try to help to outscore them. So what is our best bet here in this SEC top 25 matchup? Well, there are 2 things in this game that we think will swing this one in one way more than the other. First, LSU's run defense. Tennessee knows how to run the ball, and with Hooker's ability to run around out of the pocket, the Tigers are going to have to bring extra guys down to try and stop him. And then the Volunteers, they're honestly going to pick that secondary apart. The second thing is Tennessee's linebackers. They have been a huge part of the run defense's success this season, and as long as they have a spy on Jaden Daniels throughout the game, they should have a fairly easy time shutting down the Tigers' offense. So, with our first pick of college football, week number 6, we're going to take the Tennessee Volunteers -3 over LSU. Now with the second game this Saturday, we're going to look at number 17 TCU against number 19 Kansas, also in the 12 p.m. Eastern time slot. Horned Frogs, they're favored by 7 here. The over-under set at 69.5 points. TCU absolutely obliterated Oklahoma last week. They put up 27 points in the first quarter and had 668 yards of offense. With that win, they improved to 4-0 on the season. And as we noted in their win over Oklahoma, the name of the game for this team has been their offense. With 549 yards per game, they have put up 194 points this season. And the brunt of the work's coming from their rushing attack, which is averaging 251 yards per game. Junior running back Kendre Miller accounted for 386 yards by himself, as well as 5 touchdowns. His backup has 4 touchdowns, and they're both averaging 7.6 yards per carry. Now, quarterback Max Duggan also has contributed quite a bit to their rushing attack, but his passing ability is something Kansas needs to be ready for. He's averaging 10.6 yards per pass, 74.5% completion percentage, and already has 11 touchdowns on the season. 6 TCU receivers have over 100 yards receiving, and 7 different receivers have caught a touchdown pass. The only way Kansas is going to beat this team is by outscoring them, and they have to like their chances given how TCU's defense has been. TCU is giving up 120 rushing yards per game and 22 points per game to teams like SMU, Tarleton, and Colorado. They need to find a way to stop these opposing offenses, or their undefeated season is going to come to an end rather quickly. Now, Kansas, they've surprised us this season just a little bit. They're 5-0 for the first time since 2009, and they have done it by beating teams like West Virginia, Houston, and Iowa State. The biggest strength of this team, though, is by far their 3-pronged rushing attack led by Devin Neal, quarterback Jalen Daniels, and running back Daniel Hishaw Jr. Now, they have combined for 921 rushing yards this season together. They're averaging 6.6 yards per carry with 14 rushing touchdowns. That's more than half of their team's touchdowns this season. Although not as lethal as their run game, they can also pass the ball and do a very good job at distributing the ball across the field to a lot of their receivers. 15 different Kansas receivers have caught a pass for them this season, and 9 different receivers have caught a touchdown. Although they have over 100 less yards per game than TCU, they're averaging 41.6 points per game. That also indicates that they're great at getting good field position, which should be and will be attributed to their defense. They have forced 3 fumbles and 4 interceptions, one of which was taken back for an 86-yard touchdown. They have also tallied 15 sacks and done a great job at getting opposing offenses into third down and long situations. As long as they're able to mitigate TCU's run game and force them to throw the ball against their secondary, they should be able to keep themselves in this game, even against that high-scoring TCU offense. So, what's our best bet in this matchup? Well, as we mentioned, this game is going to be key for Kansas to have their defense ready to play. Their offense has proved that they can put up points, especially with how many options they have out of the backfield. With how poorly TCU's defense has played this season, the Jayhawks should have no problem putting up points, but the issue will be not getting outscored by the Horned Frogs. We think, honestly, these two teams are pretty evenly matched, and a 7-point favorite on the road, in our opinion, is a little high for TCU. So with our second best bet for this Saturday, we're going to take Kansas Jayhawks plus 7 points over TCU. Now, before we get into our third best bet of week number 6, just a reminder that if you want our full card of our NFL or college football plays, head on over to grandstandbettors.com and become part of our family. We look forward to seeing you guys sign up real soon and have a great fall of football betting with us. But as we mentioned, we do have one more bet here in prime time on Saturday, and it's a big one. It's Texas A&M taking on number 1 Alabama. Crimson Tide, 24.5-point favorites, and the over-under set at 50.5 at the moment. Texas A&M comes into this matchup pretty banged up and has fallen out of the top 25 after starting the season ranked 8th in college football. The week doesn't get any easier as they do play the number 1 team in the nation, Alabama. And the key to this team, especially in this matchup, is going to be the Aggies' defense. Through 5 games, they have given up 188 passing yards per game and only 17.8 points per game. One area of concern, though, for them has to certainly be the run game. They've given up 851 rushing yards this season, which is over 170 yards on the ground per game. Now, as we mentioned, they're only giving up 17.8 points per game, but what's worse than that is the fact their offense is only putting up 21 points per game. That's a horrible score differential if you want to win in the SEC. For the Aggies, the issues offensively, they start at quarterback. Max Johnson, Haynes King, they have only thrown just over 500 yards. They have a low completion percentage, around 60%, and have only combined for 6 touchdown passes with 4 interceptions. Now, Smith is by far the best receiver on the team, but after him, there's a huge drop-off that's going to make things much easier for Alabama defensively. They do have a solid back who has run the ball for 466 yards and 3 touchdowns, but that's really because he's had 81 attempts already on the season. On paper, the Aggies are severely outmatched offensively in this game, and unless there's some major changes coming up here in the next 24 hours or so, we think the offensive struggles are going to stay here another week with Texas A&M. Now, the Crimson Tide, on the other hand, they've been cruising this season. However, they did suffer a big loss last week as reigning Heisman Trophy winner Bryce Young left the game against Arkansas with a shoulder injury. Saban has said quite a few times the injury is day-to-day, but it seems very unlikely, in our opinion, that he is going to suit up for this one. Even without him, backup quarterback Jalen Milroe proved to be very capable last week after entering the game for Alabama. He went 4 for 9 for 65 yards and a touchdown, but where he really excelled was running the ball. He had 6 carries, racked up 91 rushing yards, and another touchdown while leading Alabama on back-to-back touchdown drives against a good Arkansas defense in the second half. With guys like running back Gibbs, wide receiver Trayshawn Holden, this is going to be still a lethal offense, which the Aggies are going to have their hands full. Now, defensively, the Crimson Tide, yet again, solid unit for them, despite all the guys they lose to the NFL. Through 5 games, they've only given up 55 points, and they're holding opposing offenses to 149 passing yards and 87.4 rushing yards per game. The Aggies, they're going to have a very hard time moving the ball against this defense, and we would honestly be surprised if Texas A&M puts up more than 14 points in this one. There's no way Nick Saban is going to not exploit the Aggies' weakness on defense, which is their quarterback and their passing game. So what is our best bet in this primetime matchup? Well, with or without Bryce Young, Alabama's backup, Milroe, proved he's lethal coming out of the backfield, running the ball, and with the run game they already have and adding him to the forefront of their game plan on Saturday, that's going to chew up a lot of game clock. And on the other side of the ball, the Aggies have struggled quite a bit on the season, and we don't think they're going to shape up and score a lot of points in this game. With only 21 points per game and just over 300 yards per game, it is not ideal to be playing one of the best defenses in college football. With how little offensive production you're going to get in this game, their defense is going to have to step up, and they're going to come out ready for Alabama. And I think in the first half, they're going to play good defense, and Milroe is going to regress a little bit in the week off since he played in that second half against Arkansas. So the total for this game is high because of Alabama and Texas A&M being able to put up points somewhat offensively, but honestly, with our last college football pick of week number 6, we're going to take, and this is kind of a surprise if you are a follower of ours, we're going to take Texas A&M and Alabama under 50.5 points. Well, that does it for us here at Grandstand Bettors. As always, sit back, relax, enjoy week 6 of college football, and we will see you back here, same place, same time, next week.